Welcome back to Sunday Supplement. Welcome back again to Dominic, Miguel and Martin. Let's focus on Liverpool. And the Mail on Sunday, well, it's been the opposite way around, hasn't it, for the entire season? But it was Liverpool's time to suffer late show pain as Palace party on. Dom, you were at Selhurst Park. Some performance this by Crystal Palace. But with regard to Liverpool, was this result coming, do you think?
Yeah, I thought Liverpool would struggle yesterday, just with the momentum that Crystal Palace have got, the history that Liverpool have got in that stadium, and it played out exactly how I thought it was going to do. I didn't quite expect Liverpool to be as anemic as they were during the first 45 minutes. But you know, we've talked about Brentford before. Let's give recognition to what a fantastic team Crystal Palace are. The atmosphere yesterday, Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, the noise in Selhurst Park was just fabulous. It was just, Oliver Glasner said something about this is why we all love football. And he was right. It was just a fabulous occasion to be there for.
It seems pretty churlish to even criticise Liverpool just now, Miguel. They're top of the league. It was 5 wins out of 5 in the Premier League, on top of the Carabao Cup win, on top of the Champions League victory as well. But a lot of people have been saying, look, this start to the season and how it's gone is not sustainable.
Yeah.
What do you think is wrong at Liverpool? And I know it's bizarre to say that given that they're top of the league.
But even at the top of the league because of all these late goals. And I suppose it's the classic thing with late goals, and that to potentially assign it two things. One is character, you know, personality, all the stuff that comes with being a champion. But the other side of that, especially if it happens so often, is that, well, late goals are required because you've got flaws in your team. So I think both are true with Liverpool. Because, I mean, you know, we were speaking off air, even though they're champions, they've essentially made all the changes that were kind of halfway planned when Klopp went. So it is sort of a new team. They're champions, and yet they're at the start of a new cycle. I think there's a lot of adaptation.
That was it yesterday. Sorry for interrupting. They did look like a new team. The two full-backs, when Frimpong came on and Kerkez, they're needing a period of adaptation. Alexander Isak, Arne Slot said to us on Friday that he's basically 3 weeks into his pre-season. So if you're working on the players who've started since July, he's nearly like six weeks behind in terms of his physical capabilities. Florian Wirtz is still struggling in terms of he looks like a man trying to cross a motorway at times in terms of how quick things are happening. He can't understand the pace of it. Once he gets attuned to it, he'll be brilliant. He's a fabulous footballer. I've seen enough of him in Germany to know that Liverpool have bought a diamond. It's just going to take him time. But you're right, it is a period of adaptation at the minute.
It was interesting to see, though, you mentioned Wirtz, just picking up on that he looked really good in the Champions League game, where the pace is slightly different to the Premier League, isn't it?
Yeah, there's been a couple of incidents. I've been watching him really closely. The runs that he's making into channels, he never stops. Literally never stops. He's always looking around to see little avenues that he can exploit. And he keeps looking for Virgil van Dijk to make the diagonal ball to find him. When that happens, there was an incident against Arsenal when Van Dijk found him in the second half. And the ball basically landed on his foot like it was Velcro. Unbelievable touch. He's got it all, but there is the culture of coming to England. It is a completely different league. It's a completely different physical intensity, and it's just going to take that little period of time to adapt.
Martin, Miguel mentioned that all of these late goals also signify flaws in a team. Now, one of them has been highlighted in the Sunday Mirror, and Liverpool's, it's difficult to say failure to sign Mark Gahey. What happened on deadline day, of course, but slots wide of the mark if he thinks Klopp don't need Gahey. Is that a big issue for them from what you've seen so far?
It's a weakness in this Liverpool team. If you were going through the Liverpool team position by position, the partner to Virgil van Dijk is an issue. Mark Guehi would have improved that no end. I'm glad it didn't happen. I'm glad he's with Crystal Palace, because I don't think Crystal Palace are they second in the league, I think, at the moment? I don't think they're second in the league if Mark Guehi ends up at Liverpool. So I'm delighted it didn't happen. But no, it was a mistake. You can say, because they had all summer. Crystal Palace were willing to sell, so you had all summer to get that deal done. And you know, in a summer in which they did great business, in which they pulled off certainly one transfer that a lot of people, including myself, didn't think was going to happen. That one, you thought, well, this is stitched on. Crystal Palace want to sell, Liverpool want to buy, the player wants to go. What's the problem here? And somehow they didn't get it over the line. It could end up costing them. I don't think it will. I think when it clicks, they're going to be scoring so many goals that you know the defence becomes less of an issue. But at the moment, it's an issue.
Let's talk Palace very quickly. Elise left last summer. Eberiche Eze left this summer, and they are the only unbeaten team in the Premier League. In the Sunday Telegraph, and I know Martin doesn't want to hear this, but Glasner needs a new deal with rivals on alert. If they can keep him, and because there seems to be so many Premier League managers under pressure at the moment, with the likes of Glasner and Iraola top of everyone's list, it seems, if they were to make that change. But if they can keep Glasner, which we've no reason to suspect that they can't, what kind of season do you think, Dom, Crystal Palace can have?
Oh, they're excellent. The one thing that really struck me yesterday, when they scored the late winner, yes, it was bedlam in the stands and fabulous scenes on the pitch, but it was the reaction of the coaching staff. They were all in together. And you can see they're really building something, and they have been over 18 months. I'd love to see Palace go on and win the Conference League. I'd love them to, and I don't see any reason why they can't do it. They've got everything. You know, the attack yesterday was pace, power, strength, potent, everything that you could want from a team. Gueye was faultless. Gueye was impeccable yesterday. Never put a foot wrong. Great character, brilliant captain. And then there's that energy where you can see they're all in it together. And as Martin said, it's fabulous to see the league table looking so different.
I'd like to see him win the Premier League. I mean, forget the Conference League. I'd like to see him win the Premier. You know, I still fondly remember the Leicester season. I'm not going to say for 1 second it's going to happen to anyone this year, but I loved the fact that Nottingham Forest were involved all the way through last year. I'm a great believer in why can't let's have a little dream that Crystal Palace are still up there in March or April. They're a really good team with a really good coach. Glasner is a tremendous coach. I'd love to see him still up there.
On that as well, I mean, people at Palace mightn't appreciate the comparison, but there's an element of Brighton, which I suppose, and any well-run club, in that they've lost these players like Elise, Eze. That would usually kill a team. I mean, it happened to Leicester. As soon as they lose Mahrez, Kante and Vardy, it all just kind of it subsides. Whereas with this, it's actually they've kicked on to another level and and now there's actually, having lost these two players, there's actually another core of players who everyone else would want, as well as the manager.
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool slipping up for the first time this season means opportunity knocks potentially for Arsenal. In the Sun, the headline is all guns blazing. Norgard, their attack vow after handbrake jibe. This is a big opportunity, Martin, isn't it, for Arsenal? And they have to take it, and they have to, in inverted commas, release that handbrake.
Yeah, they do. I think they've got, and all Liverpool fans go nuts when I say this, I think they've got the best squad in the league. I really do, because I don't think Konate, who starts for Liverpool, would get anywhere near that Arsenal team. So I think the depth of the Arsenal squad is such that there comes a moment where you've got to go, right, we've got no excuse anymore. We just need to go out and do it, go out and win it. And I think that's this season. I fancy Liverpool for the league. There's no doubt about that. But this is a season when there aren't any excuses at Arsenal. When you've got the personnel, you've got the players, the depth in every single position is really, really strong. So there's your chance today. Liverpool have slipped up against Crystal Palace. Funnily enough, if they get a 1-1 draw at Crystal Palace, it isn't the worst result in the world, because Crystal Palace are a good team, but it's the fact they got back into the game and then slung it away. So now you're looking at it, this is a chance. But you've got to go and beat Newcastle, because Liverpool beat Newcastle.
And that's where they slept up last year. Every time that Liverpool, there was a false step. Like there was the Liverpool drew with home to Fulham, Arsenal drew 0-0 with Everton that same afternoon. They kept missing chances. You know about this thing about the handbrake? Man City scored the goal last week that Arsenal would never score. That quick breakaway.
Yeah.
Now, there was... watch that Liverpool game against Arsenal at Anfield. Arsenal had a couple of chances to do that to Liverpool. 2-3 quick passes, and they were in. And every time they got to the halfway line, stopped and came back, and it allowed Liverpool to get organised and whatever. And that was the thing I was trying to think about this rivalry. When Liverpool were playing Man City at Anfield, there was always that sort of nervous energy amongst the crowd. When Liverpool had a corner, if this goes wrong, we're in trouble. This is 2-3 passes in there, anyway. You don't have that with Arsenal, and that's the thing that they have to change.
Yeah, but doesn't that come back to, I think, this midfield he picked? Like, I would actually disagree that the midfield was necessarily defensive. I think they've all got defensive qualities, but they're not really defensive midfield. Like Zubamendi's control, Rice is all power, and Marino, like, he's a goal scorer. But it was basically how, it comes back to your point about like how they can't break. It was all technical possession among those players, rather than actually someone who can just break a game like that, which they might have done if, say, Saka or Eze was on.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
when they played Liverpool the other week, and I was watching that match, and the commentary was everything was about how well Arsenal were doing, And I'm looking at it thinking, I'm watching a different game here, because as far as I can see here, the only team I fancy scoring are Liverpool. Now, I'm not saying I predicted the free kick that won the game or whatever, but you're looking at it and thinking, Liverpool are the ones that look really dangerous. Arsenal have got a lot of the ball and they look very controlled and everything, but Liverpool look like they've got the spark that will win the game.
But if it does come down to these two, I think this is going to be the dynamic that decides the season. And like, it reflects actually their summer business. It feels like Liverpool have gone for this higher ceiling of individual quality, particularly in Wirtz and Isak and Ekitike and what they can potentially do. Whereas Arsenal have gone with some, I mean, I think Zubamendi and Eze are kind of top quality players, but they've gone the other direction, which is depth. And I think this is what it could come down to, whether players like that can open a game for Liverpool, an individual game. But where Arsenal's depth will be really, really important if Liverpool aren't too far ahead of time is when it comes to November to January and you've got games every 3 days and like you can't keep playing the same 11. And that's where I think this could, and I think how it plays out could be fascinating.
Yes, a big opportunity for Arsenal, but probably not the place that they'd want that opportunity, because they've lost their last 3 games in all competitions at St James's Park. And one of the main protagonists for Newcastle United has been Anthony Gordon in these games. He's actually back from his domestic ban following that sending off against Liverpool a few weeks ago. Eddie Howe doesn't want to change him at all. This has got the ingredients, hasn't it, Dom, to be... It has had the ingredients in the past few seasons of being a real powder keg of a fixture, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. And I've looked at this all the way out this week and been thinking, Newcastle lost at home to Liverpool. They then lost at home to Barcelona. Are the crowd going to put up with another defeat at home? It'll be a bear pit again. Newcastle need a win. Newcastle need something just to give them a bit of a kickstart. I just think they will be wound up to the absolute max this afternoon.
And with that in mind, this is an opportunity then, isn't it, for Arsenal to make that statement? Because if they can go there and get the result, then people will sit up and take notice and think, right, the weekend that Liverpool have lost, Arsenal have gone to St James's Park and done the business. Yeah,
exactly what Dom said earlier, that one of the issues last season was that Arsenal never capitalised on a Liverpool slip. Well, this is the grand opportunity for that sort of just even for the psychology of the team itself, just to show they can do that. But like as you say, it's exactly the wrong opponents, because it is one of those rivalries that sometimes just come out of nothing in the Premier League. So suddenly because the coaching staff don't like each other that much, or the players have a few games where they really get into it, and that kind of evolves into something else. Now, there is another dynamic there, because Arsenal, or at least under the old Arsenal hierarchy, which has now just changed under Tim Lewis, they were particularly anti-state ownership. That obviously this has become such a kind of thing with Newcastle. So it's going to be very interesting whether we see this again from the start of this match. I mean, Newcastle, as you say, after 2 defeats at home in big games, they will want to come out roaring.